The rain fell like broken promises that October evening, each drop a reminder of everything Sarah Mitchell had lost. She stood at the bus stop, her worn jacket doing little against the cold, watching the expensive cars rush past, to each one carrying someone home to warmth, to family, to a life she no longer recognized as her own. 3 months ago, she'd been one of them. 3 months ago, she'd had a corner office, a mortgage, and a future. Now she had a gym bag with everything she owned and a daughter who deserved so much better than a mother who couldn't even afford a motel room. "Mama, I'm cold," whispered Emma, pressing closer. At 7 years old, she was trying so hard to be brave, but Sarah could see the fear in those wide brown eyes, fear that mirrored her own. Sarah pulled her daughter tighter, blinking back tears that threatened to spill. "I know, baby, the bus will be here soon." But she had no idea where that bus would take them. The women's shelter was full. Her credit cards were maxed. Her parents were gone, and her ex-husband had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with the family he'd abandoned. She was 32 years old, and she'd never felt more invisible, more disposable, more utterly alone. The bus pulled up, its brakes hissing like a sigh. Sarah counted the crumpled bills in her pocket, barely enough for fare. As they climbed aboard, she noticed her immediately, an elderly woman sitting near the front, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun, her coat simple but clean. But it was her eyes that caught Sarah, deep and knowing, as if she could see straight through to all the broken pieces inside. "Sit here, dear," the woman said, patting the seat beside her. Her voice was soft, touched with an accent Sarah couldn't quite place. "You look like you could use a friend." Sarah hesitated. She'd learned to be wary of kindness. It usually came with conditions, with judgment, with the unspoken expectation that she'd somehow gotten herself into this mess and should be ashamed. But Emma was already sliding into the seat, drawn by the warmth in the stranger's smile. "I'm Rose," the woman said, and something about the way she said it made Sarah feel like it was more than just a name, it was a promise. "Sarah, and this is Emma." "Hello, Emma," Rose said, and from her purse she pulled out a wrapped sandwich. "I packed this for later, but I'm not very hungry. Would you like it?" Emma looked up at Sarah with desperate hope. They hadn't eaten since the free breakfast at the church that morning. Sarah's pride warred with her daughter's hunger, and hunger won. "That's very kind of you," she managed. As Emma ate, Rose turned to Sarah. "You don't have to tell me," she said quietly, "but I know that look. I wore it myself once, many years ago." Something about those words, the lack of pity, the simple acknowledgement, broke something open inside Sarah. The story poured out. The corporate downsizing that had taken her job. The landlord who'd evicted them when she fell behind on rent. The systematic way everything she'd built had collapsed like a house of cards. The terror of being responsible for a child when you couldn't even take care of yourself. Rose listened without interrupting, her weathered hand finding Sarah's and holding tight. When Sarah finally fell silent, exhausted by her own pain, Rose said, "I came to this country with nothing but my daughter and a suitcase. My husband had died, and there was nothing left for us in the old country. I was terrified. I didn't speak the language well. I cleaned houses, worked nights in a bakery, slept in a friend's basement with my little girl curled beside me. I know what it feels like to believe the world has forgotten you exist. How did you?" Sarah couldn't finish the question. "Someone helped me, a woman named Mrs. Chen who owned the bakery. She gave me extra shifts, taught me English, let me bring my daughter to work. She saw me when I felt invisible. And she told me something I've never forgotten. We don't rise alone. We rise because someone reaches down and pulls us up. And then we do the same for someone else." The bus lurched to a stop. Rose stood, gathering her bags. "This is my stop." "But Sarah, I want you to have this." She pressed something into Sarah's hand, a business card and several folded bills. "The card is for my friend who manages an apartment building. Tell him I sent you. He has a small unit, and he's a kind man. The money is for first month's rent and some groceries." Sarah stared at the money, and more than enough to give them a start. "I can't take this. I don't even know you. How will I ever pay you back?" Rose smiled, and in that smile was an entire lifetime of understanding. "You'll pay it forward, dear. When you're back on your feet, and you'll help someone else. That's how we keep the light going in this world, one person at a time." "But why?" Sarah's voice cracked. "Why me? Because 50 years ago, I was you, and someone chose to see me, to believe I was worth saving." "You are worth it, Sarah. You and that beautiful girl. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." Rose touched Emma's cheek gently, then was gone, disappearing into the rainy night like an angel who'd only borrowed human form. Sarah sat frozen, the money heavy in her hand, tears streaming down her face. Emma looked up at her. "Mama, are we going to be okay now?" "Yeah, baby," Sarah whispered. "I think we are." The apartment turned out to be small but cleaner, a studio with a fold-out couch and a tiny kitchen. Mr. Santos, Rose's friend, was indeed kind, asking no questions, simply handing over the keys and telling her the building always needed someone to help with cleaning and maintenance if she was interested. Sarah took every shift he offered, working as if possessed, determined to prove Rose's faith hadn't been misplaced. She found a job at a local insurance OSU entry level, nothing like what she'd had before, but honest work with benefits. Emma started at the neighborhood school, making friends, laughing again. Slowly, painfully, like a plant turning toward the sun, their life began to reshape itself into something sustainable, something hopeful. Sarah tried to find Rose again, to thank her properly, but the phone number on the card was disconnected. Mr. Santos said Rose had moved to live with her daughter across the country. It was as if she'd been exactly where she needed to be, exactly when she needed to be there, and then had simply moved on to wherever she was needed next. 2 years passed. Sarah got a promotion, then another. She and Emma moved into a proper one-bedroom apartment. They were building something, and not what they'd had before, but something better, something forged in fire and gratitude and the knowledge of how quickly everything could disappear. One evening, standing at that same bus stop where her life had changed, Sarah saw her. A young woman, maybe 25, with a little boy clutching her hand. The woman's face held that same desperate look Sarah remembered so well, the expression of someone drowning in plain sight, surrounded by people who couldn't or wouldn't see. Sarah didn't hesitate. She walked over and sat down beside them. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Sarah. You look like you could use a friend." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been there." Sarah opened her purse, pulled out her wallet, and removed a card for the women's shelter where she now volunteered, and enough money to help. "Not everything, but enough to be a beginning. I want you to have this, and I want you to know something important. You're not invisible. You matter, and you're going to get through this." "I don't understand." "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Sarah smiled, and in that moment, she felt Rose's presence so strongly it was like the older woman was standing right beside her. "Someone helped me once when I needed it most. She taught me that we don't rise alone. We rise because someone reaches down and pulls us up. And then we do the same for someone else. That's how we keep the light going." The young woman stared at the money, then back at Sarah, something fragile and precious kindling in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or just the beginning of belief that she might survive this after all. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You'll pay it forward," Sarah said. "When you're back on your feet, and you'll help someone else." Promise me that." "I promise." As Sarah walked home that evening, the rain had stopped, and the sky was clearing. Emma was waiting at their apartment, probably doing homework at the kitchen table. They had a roof over their heads, food in the refrigerator, and a future that was theirs to shape. But more than that, they had something that no amount of money could buy, the knowledge that humanity, at its core, is about seeing each other, really seeing each other, and choosing, again and again, to reach out our hands. Rose had given her more than money that night on the bus. She'd given her back her dignity, her hope, her belief that she mattered. And now Sarah was passing that gift forward, keeping the light going, one act of kindness at a time. Because that's what her means to every woman, every person, every human being struggling in the dark, waiting for someone to see them. We are all her at different moments in our lives. We are all the one who needs help, and we are all the one who can give it. The real question isn't whether we'll need help. We will. The question is whether, when our moment comes to reach down and pull someone else up, we'll have the courage to do it. Whether we'll choose to see the invisible, to help the helpless, to be the reason someone else doesn't give up. Sarah climbed the stairs to her apartment, thinking of Rose, of the young woman at the bus stop, of all the invisible threads connecting us, person to person, heart to heart. We don't rise alone. We never have. We rise together, or we don't rise at all. And that night, as she tucked Emma into bed, Sarah whispered a prayer of gratitude for the kindness of strangers, for second chances, for the magnificent, terrifying, beautiful humanity we all share, for every her who had helped, and every her who still needed helping. The light was still going, and it always would be, as long as people like Rosie, people like all of you chose to keep passing it forward.